Thank you very much, Mr. Roland. And thank you to you all, ladies and gentlemen, present here today. Thank you to the Maasai community that are heavily represented here. I feel rejoiced to see your beautiful faces and to see the hope in those faces. I hope that after this panel, that hope will be renewed and you can continue the fight which you have started to regain your rightful ancestral land. The first thing I want to start talking about is the link between land and indigenous people and why the African human rights adjudicating bodies have said that there is a link between the two, indigenous peoples and land. Because land is very important for their very survival as a people. Without your land, you will stop existing as a people. And that is what the African Commission on Human and People Rights and the African Court have said. Therefore, your land is very important. Because land to indigenous peoples like the Maasai also has a spiritual connotation. It is where their cultural beliefs are based. It started when the colonizers came in and apportioned the most fruitful and lucrative part of the land in any state to themselves by chasing out the original inhabitants of that land. That perpetration continues to date because even though the colonizers have gone, our governments are still involved in taking land that originally belonged to indigenous peoples. Now the protection of indigenous peoples in relation to their land is to redress those colonial injustices that took place before. Unfortunately, instead of redressing it, our governments are perpetrating it and rendering indigenous people homeless and destitute. The African Commission and the African Court have taken up very, very serious positions in the cases that MRG and its partners have litigated before this court. In the Endoros case, the Endoros of Kenya, in the Endoros case that was litigated before the African Commission, who we are privileged today to have one of the commissioners amongst us, and particularly responsible for indigenous peoples and minority. In the Endoros case, the commission stated that indigenous people cannot be evicted from their land without their consent. And that for any development that the government wants to undertake on land that belongs to indigenous people, the government must seek their free, prior, and informed consent. Which means that the government must consult with the original inhabitants of the land, and they must agree whether they should be relocated or not. And if another portion of land is being allocated to them, whether the people wish to go to that piece of land or not. And the commission also stated that the people have a right to withhold their consent. It cannot be obtained by coercive means. I say this because I want you people to understand that whatever you have gone through, which has not gone through the process which I have explained, remains illegal. A second important case which I want to highlight is the Ogiek case, the Ogiek of Mao in Kenya. The Ogiek had received a notice of eviction for them to vacate their ancestral land in the Mao Forest Complex. A case was lodged before the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, and the Commission issued provisional measures for the government of Kenya to halt the eviction of the Ogiek from their ancestral land until the case was settled by the Commission. The government of Kenya did not comply with the decision. The matter was taken to the African Court on Human and People's Rights, and the court issued another order of provisional measures for the government to halt the eviction of the Ogiek. This time, the government of Kenya complied and halted the eviction. And there was a final decision on the merits and on reparations. And I just want to highlight some key points in that judgment, which I think are very pertinent. The first thing the court said was that indigenous people cannot be evicted from their land without their free, prior, and informed consent. The court also acknowledged that the designation of indigenous people and the protection that they receive is meant to cure colonial injustices in which indigenous peoples were illegally and forcefully and at times brutally evicted and dispossessed of their traditional lands. Going forward, the court said, for anything that the government wishes to do on land which is traditionally owned by indigenous people, the government must consult with them, not just to meet a few of their leaders and buy them off, but to have town hall consultations with the leaders and the indigenous peoples themselves and seek their consent. Consent is not just, it actually starts with informing the people of everything that needs to be done on that land and why they need that piece of land to do it. The people must understand, that is what I call informed consent. They must understand why and why their land. Secondly, the court also said that for those situations where the government prior had used the land for development purposes, the government should ensure that the inhabitants, original inhabitants, the indigenous people who inhabited the land before, should benefit from the proceeds that are coming because the government is using their land for whatever development project the government is involved in. Now let me conclude by using the last 2 minutes to talk about fortress conservation, which is a new form by which governments are forcing indigenous peoples from their land on the misconception and belief, which has not been scientifically proven, that nature is better preserved when humans do not interfere with it. But we have known from time immemorial that indigenous peoples have been the best conservers and protectors of the environment and biodiversity. And environmental degradation and the loss of biodiversity has happened when indigenous people are taken away, are expelled from their lands, and the land is used by government and its partners for development purposes. If indigenous people had remained in their land, the climate change we face today, we will not be facing them. The best way to stop climate change is to make sure that indigenous people remain on their land, is to make sure that land that have been seized from indigenous people is restituted to indigenous people, and not to send militarized agents to harass indigenous peoples on a daily basis so that government and its agencies can reap the resources from these lands and thereby destroy the environment. The coercive conservation model does not work for Africa. And I will speak with authority because I have the commissioner from the African Commission who is here, that the commission has stated categorically that fortress conservation models that require that indigenous peoples are taken out of their land is wrong and is not sustainable for Africa. Thank you very much.
I would like to call Madam Nema, and I want you to speak, to take it from where Samuel has left it. Because when you're talking about fortress conservation, we are speaking about activists, community members who have been harassed, arrested, arbitrarily detained, sometimes beaten because of defending land rights of the community. So where do you come in, and what do you see the situation as? So I'll call Nema, then Joseph, you start preparing. Yeah. And when you speak, just to shorten the time, you can already translate back to the community member so that we can release him a bit. Thank you, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned earlier, I'm Neema Senetoseki from Ngorongoro, and I'll be discussing the mentioned topic pertaining generally the gender perspective, that is the female, children, and elderly people. During the displacement of people in Loliondo, where 14 villages were displaced and thousands of people were also displaced, there are so many things that happened there, particularly to female. 25 of them were shot by live bullets. Hence, those women were the mothers of very many families. Therefore, they could not support their families anymore. And most of the women by then, when they were running out from the multitude, some of them were injured, and most of them, they lost their pregnancies. A number of them, approximately 200 of them. But that is not only the issue. We can see most of the kids were reported lost, and up to now, there are some of them who have not yet been found to this time. And about the social services, particularly in Ngorongoro, since 2022, the medical flying service was banned by the government. Therefore, most of the people, particularly women and children, could not get vaccines, and hence most of them could give birth at home, leading to death. And also, the kids could not be vaccinated. This was not a big deal by then, but now, since the situation is worsening because the kids are not getting enough food, or actually they do not get food at all, because there have been restrictions from the government to bring food in Ngorongoro. So most of the women right now from Ngorongoro, they could move 1,000 miles to go and look for food. In the process of moving, some of them could be raped, some of them could even die. This is why we're simply urging the Commission to take a look on this issue and and do something about it. We are actually saying that the conservation should conserve the people and the people in that land. But now what is happening in Ngorongoro, it's really not it's not conservation. Where do we think that a conservation could kill its people? It's not right at all. Why do you starve people in Ngorongoro? That is not conservation. And about the education, we're having a number of schools there, but I'll simply talk about Ngorongoro Girls. Ngorongoro Girls is a school in Ngorongoro, but it has a number of about 500 students, but the school only have 5 toilets. You can imagine the situation there. Only 5 toilets for 500 girls. Yet the toilets are blocked. No one is going to work on them because the plumbers are not allowed to go to Ngorongoro. No construction is allowed to increase the toilets there. So most of the girls are ending up getting UTIs and so many other diseases. That is the hardest situation right now facing the women in Ngorongoro. Another thing is about the economy of the people in Ngorongoro. As we all know that we are living in a world that is men-dominated world. But when it comes to us Maasais, we are so much into that like men are the head of the families, and whatever a man can say, no woman can object. So when it comes to this issue of evicting from Ngorongoro, once a man accepts to evict, then a woman is actually obliged to do so, without even thinking of what is going to happen next. And if a woman tries to refuse, then that the husband will take an action of taking the kids, or even leave the woman with the kids. But he will take all his cows, and the cows are the source of economy in our country, in our Maasai people. So when a woman is left alone, she will start thinking of how to feed her kids. There, the woman will start moving from Ngorongoro to Karatu. For the matter of fact, right now in Karatu, there are so many women, so many Maasai women in Karatu, and they're not even doing something that is productive. Most of them, you'll meet them sleeping at the verandas of Karatu. And what does that insinuate? If someone is going somewhere and not having what to do, actually, she will end up doing anything for money. As a mother, you can do anything for your kid. What does that mean? It means that this woman can do anything. When I mean anything, I mean she can even be a sex commercial worker so that she can get some money to feed her kids. That is the real situation that is happening right now in Ngorongoro. So most of the women right now are just meandering in different cities and leaving the kids at home and the elderly people. But most of the men are just mobile. They can move from one city to another looking for money, but the situation that is being faced by the people who are in Ngorongoro, they are mostly affecting the women, kids, and the elderly people. So I think the African Commission should take serious action on this issue. Thank you.
And I think before going to a legal issue and how the court responds to this kind of issues, I think I would wish to comment on the main agenda of today of the coercive conservation model, which we say is broken. And I think that's very, very true. And before saying it is broken, we must understand the philosophy of the Tanzania conservation model, where it originates, how does it work. It is only then you can try to critique something you know at least its genesis. And I think many of you might understand, but let me say, the conservation that we have it now originates from, was influenced through the colonial time, which has it is roots from the Yellowstones in United States, then went to UK and Germans, who were actually the colonialists here, then brought into the colonies. And you understand, at the time of colonialism, it was the colonialist versus subject, not citizen. So it was brought in a way. It has a color element. It has the main philosophy is expansionism. From 0 to 40% of the Tanzania land is conserved. Not one was ever a result of a bargain. From Serengeti, which was the first, to Pololeti last year. All of them were the result of course, expansion, of course, but how do you do that expansion? You don't talk. You attack. And the Maasai were the first victim of that model in Serengeti. And it went to Ngorongoro, which they said it should be a multiple land use model. Is it multiple? Is it really a model? No. I'm from Ngorongoro. Over the years, because displacement can take many shapes. It can be a physical violence, as it was last year in Lyondo, where some people always say 70,000 people. You go to the national census last year, the 15 villages that were affected has a population of 97,000 people. The government never talked to anyone. They went on 9th June and started operation on 10. Displaced everyone. They banned bombers. They pull other down using some big wire pulled by the tractors. And everyone was given an ultimatum. We do not want you tomorrow. Not like you have, you were saying about a notice by Kenyan government. Like sometimes they'll get out. It was, we do not want you tomorrow. It was on 27 June. And on 28, someone recklessly, maybe, some might say, remained in. And they shot all the cows, all the donkeys with bullets. That's how the Tanzania conservation works. Expansion, how do you do military or violence? All the guys who are now working under the conservation sector in Tanzania are actually paramilitary, trained never to sit within a bargain, but coerce, which actually shifted the real idea of conservation to protection of cause. So they do not even understand how can we progress in conservation. So if it is a tree, you protect from being fell down. Not like plant another. They don't know anything about that. If you plant a tree today in Ngorongoro, we say Ngorongoro Conservation Area, I can tell you, you'll be arrested tomorrow for planting a tree. And they say that's conservation. And another element for it to work, because now if you use violence to expand, you need some justification. And how do you do that? Is not by research. And actually, there was an attempt to evict Maasai in Ngorongoro in 1980s. They went to UNESCO and say, how can we make these people out? And they said, maybe some of you knows, Professor Homewood and Alan Rogers. Alan Rogers, I think, died last year. They wrote a very good report saying, actually, these people, the Maasai, will never affect the land. It is actually you who are changing them to become some kind of things you are imagining, which ultimately affect nature. But if you leave them alone, they are the best guardian of the nature. And after that, they never wanted a research again. They don't want scientific evidence. So how do you do then? It is, it has been the case, of course, from America, from UK, from Germany. You do propaganda as a means to justify it. And in this case, they say, and you all I think knows, these are Kenyans. They smell Kenyans. They are Sudanese. The Minister for Constitution and Legal Affairs last year said, Maasai do not have ancestral land in Tanzania. They have it in Sudan. Do we? Never. And the president says they are from Kerio Valley. Is that related to conservation? Never. And some says they do not bury dead bodies. Is that related to conservation? Never. They try to imagine something, whether humanitarian, fake humanitarians, or anything that might support it. Doing propaganda to justify, not research, because they know they will never get one. So those people, so many polygamists, someone said in the right word, polygamist. Is that an issue? In this country, polygamy is part of some, of course, Maasai are polygamists, yes, that's a fact. Some are actually element of religions. We do not go and attack someone because of the nature of their marriage. And ultimately, they justify conservation, coercive conservation. And another element is not really nature influenced, but financially oriented. It is, we do it for hunting, we do it for hotel, we do it for tourism. Are those synonymous to conservation? Never. Hunting is not conservation. Hotels is not conservation. Tourism is not conservation. There are some different disciplines, of course, that some of them are actually a threat to nature conservation, including, for example, you are saying you displace all the people for sake of wildlife, and then you bring a person to kill them. That is not conservation. That's some sort of another madness, in my opinion. And mostly is top-down influence. So we decide on the top, we never talk. And this is a philosophy. And I can give you two examples. In 1972, Professor Bernard Jimek, who actually influenced what happened in Serengeti, was in the Frankfurt Zoological Society and the most friend of Mwalimu, many like Mwalimu. He said, I could work with Idi Amin or Joseph Stalin if they can help me protect the animal of Serengeti. And he says, when we were working about the Serengeti relocation of the Maasai, we never speak to parliaments because these matters of conservation do not work in a democracy. And last year, they went to parliament on 9 February. And one guy from Mtwara said, please do not talk to them, take the military. Because this philosophy never works in a democracy. So then we went to court, and this is a little summary I can give. Because these things has happened in 2017, we will file a case in court, in the East African court. And in 2018, the court issued a provisional ruling telling the government, please stop your operation until we finalize this case. Then before the case came into finality, there was Operation June last year, which is entirely a contempt of the court order. Okay, we have the final of course, almost 3 months later. Then following the operation last year, we filed several other cases. Some are pending in court. I cannot go to detail of that. But at least the response by the Tanzania court so far, in the first case against the Minister Declaration of the Polarized Game Control Area, which we have at least the ruling so far, said that mad operation last year never followed the law. Never voluntary, never sort of any discussion. They never produced one, at least that we interviewed 10 people and they said we don't want. They never produced one. And the court said there is a requirement to consult people. And you said, rightly I think, it is always right to have prior informed consent. They never did one, not even uninformed. And for the other cases about the game reserve, we have at least the ruling of the court suspending the government notice, if I can say about what the law, at least so far. So we have several cases, of course, in the South African court. One case about Ngorongoro, which actually touches about the denial of social service, where the government written letters, recklessly, openly, telling its officers, please withdraw the money by 5th April. A 5-day notice, all the school, Embarwai, Nanokanoka, all the primary schools, and some other, they were actually saying, they issued a notice in 2021 saying, we want to demolish 9 primary schools. And the government alleged they were built without government consent. All are government facilities. There are people in this room who studied in those schools, and in almost 15 years later, the government says it was built without consent. The dispensaries, 6 out of 7. One police station built in 1979. How can that be possible? We need to trigger people out, because this philosophy do not require participatory mechanism. And that's why we are saying this is a failed system. And I think we should facilitate its final demise, because we cannot put all the people, 100,000 people in Ngorongoro, more than 100,000 people in Loliondo, at expense of someone coming for hunting, a luxury. All of them wiped all the animals in their own areas, and they want to do some luxurious things, which I think is barbaric, by the way. I think that's not the conservation that we want. We want the conservation that there is research that says 80% of the world biodiversity is preserved is in 5% of the land preserved by the indigenous people. And I think if that's the thinking, then we can go further, bring the indigenous people in, and ensure that we bring conservation into their lives. So I think, Roland, that's my brief comment. But
In 1 minute.
Yes. Okay, but one point is, now that displacement, I said it can take physical, but also it can be a long time marginalization, as it is happening in Ngorongoro. You staff people for 40 years, and then you come and tell them there is a place we have 700 kilometers away. They do not have health service, not food. So is it like you give an option: you continue here and die, or we take you out of to the land you never heard of it. So that's my brief.
Na wakati huu tunaenda kwenye ndugu yetu wa mwisho ambaye jina lake ni Edward Porokwa, ambaye mnamjua sana. Edward Porokwa, the head of Pingos Forum.
Asante sana. There's always a disadvantage of being the last speaker, because almost everything will have been said. However, I will go through the experience of many of the people here, including the civil society, because everything has been said in detail on the history of the people of Ngorongoro and Loliondo, and the atrocity that they have been getting through for the last 2 years or even beyond. But most importantly, one of the very big issues, and I wish if the Special Rapporteur on UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of expression is here, one of the major issues that is encountering the people in Loliondo and Ngorongoro is the issue of freedom to express all these grievances that have been explained by Senate Joseph and probably will be explained by the community. Second, the issue of threats, the issue of intimidation, the issue of labeling the people as people that are causing incitement. You may wonder how many people would wish to talk about the situation in Loliondo and Ngorongoro. But you will also wonder how much propaganda and how much lies is there in the information that is coming to the public and the information that is being given by the media, and we don't know how much have been spent by the conservation actors, including the government, in funding the media to give wrong information about the situation that is happening in Loliondo. This thing did not start on June 19th. It started way before. But maybe I can start from January 2022, when the government intimated the interest of evicting the people from Loliondo, and of course moving the people from Ngorongoro to Msomera, and how this has happened in different government platforms, in the parliament, by the offices of the ministries, and how the information was coming out that the people had been consulted, which was not true. And at the end of the day, how the media was used to do the propaganda that has led to the situation that we landed in June 2022. And only 10 or 15 days before that, before 9th, how the people of Loliondo and Ngorongoro differently made their report and submitted it to the government in a very participatory way on how they want to manage their land and the kind of conservation that they are going to implement in Loliondo. They submitted the report on 25th of May. That report has never worked. Only 2 weeks later, they were attacked. And how their leadership have been threatened. 27 Maasai leaders, traditional and councillors, were arrested on a murder case, which has never gone to an end because the government said they have no interest in that case. How do we expect those people to continue talking about the situation? How do you expect the organization and civil society that have been labeled as people that are inciting the people, and that they are coming with an agenda of the Western to support their financial interest in the Western country? This is what is happening. It is you will see how marginalization of indigenous people is happening in the country. You will see even how the civil society, other big civil society in the country, are not engaging on the issue of Loliondo because of the threat of deregistration, because of the threat of having cases in court. Everybody, every leader, many of them here have faced a police station simply because they have been vocal on the issue of Loliondo or Ngorongoro. We are also very concerned with the promotion visit of the African Commission of Human and People's Rights, which visited Tanzania this year, which many of these people wanted to talk to the commission, but the locations that were picked for them to talk with the commission were not favorable. And even some of them, after the departure of the commission, had to run out of the country because of the threat that came out during the visit of the promotion mission. It is very unfortunate seeing that this mechanism that are promoting also the right of indigenous people are so much controlled with the government, and people are really finding themselves very vulnerable, and particularly the indigenous people in Tanzania. We are not sure what will happen to people who will speak here today. We will not surprise if repression is taking place after this meeting, because this is the order of the day. It has been happening, and we don't surprise if it happen even today. So I call upon the commission to take note that the people that are going to talk here may face consequences, and that have to be followed up very closely to ensure that their rights are protected as individuals. Because many of the people here, even in the coming of this hall, have been here since 10, trying to get into this building. But see, I was walking behind Joseph. I was wearing this clothes. It is very Western. And Joseph was wearing this one. I passed. I was not asked the question. He was asked. Simply because he is wearing the Masayaka. So I think it is time now we stop this colonial mentality. These are human beings. These are not animals. And this, even if we don't have the formal education that many of the government leaders have, but we are not stupid. We can think. I think it is time for the commission to, this is the commission of the people. And that is why it is called the Africa Commission of Human and Peoples. And these are the peoples. And I think access to the commission should be an issue of concern to indigenous people, and it has been seen here today when the indigenous people were fighting to get into this building. So for me, the kind of conservation that we have is exactly synonymous to what was done to us in the gate today. The people of Ngorongoro have the documents. They are online. They are submitted on the 25th of May 2022 in Dodoma in a colorful event where all the Maasai were wearing Maasai attire, and it was received. But this is not being taken into account. 9 or 10 days later, the councillors were arrested. On a murder case, we have people that disappeared, including Olengiyo, we don't know where he is. We have the case taken to court and withdrawn without any explanation. We have threats to human rights defenders. We have silence. We are now in silence. Many of us had been very silent for a very long time. Many of the human rights defenders who really are concerned on what is happening in Loliondo are very silent. And they are silent because of the threat that is happening on the ground. And I think this is the time to talk with the African government, and particularly the Tanzanian government, about the rights of indigenous people, the rights of the Maasai people, of Ngorongoro, Loliondo, Kia, and other places, and Somera. Because even Somera is a village land, and the people of Somera have the right to land. But the way it is put, it is a game controlled area. They don't have the right to live in that area, and that they are given. Just like the narrative that the government owned the 4,000 kilometer squares of Loliondo, and now they are giving people 2,500 and only keeping 1,502. I think it is time to say the truth, and I think it is time also to look at the freedom of expression. Many of our media are silent, and even this story will not come out in the local media because of the threats that we have to the media and the civil society and individuals who are ready to talk about the rights of the people. I think I talk generally not about Ngorongoro, but about the situation that the people are facing here. Thank you very much.
Ningetaka kuwasalimu nyote, viongozi, wazee, kina mama, vijana, mko salama. Ya, tumekuja leo tena. Nimesikia wakati nilikuwa ninasikiza kuna watu ambao hawajui tulikuja Tanzania na tulitembea. Ningetaka kujua kwa mkono wale watu tulizungumzia ikiwa wako hapa. Wengine ninawatambua. Kwa mkono. Kwa mkono wale watu tulizungumzia. Mnaweza simama? Hii inaweza saidia. wale watu wakati tulitembea, wale watu tulikuta kina mama, viongozi, vijana wengi. Asanteni, tafadhali kaeni chini. Wataalamu ambao wamezungumza hapa, ningetaka kuwashukuru sababu mmefafanua hii unaita Coercive Conservation Model. Na sababu nyinyi ni wataalamu, sitaongezea kwa hiyo. Vile nitafanya, nitajaribu tuzungumze kidogo. Wakati tulikuja safari ile, tulikuja hapa mwezi wa pili, kazi yetu ilikuwa mbili. Tuje tukutane na watu wa Ngorongoro, wenyeji wa Ngorongoro, wa Loliondo na Msomera. Kitu ya pili tulikuwa twende Dodoma tukutane na viongozi, tuwaeleze ile kazi tulimefanya, ile maoni tumetoa kule mashinani. Hiyo ndio ilikuwa kazi yetu, ndio inaitwa objective ya mission. Hiyo ndio ilituleta, na tukaja na tukaenda Ngorongoro. Hatukuenda town, tulienda mpaka kwa Kreta. Hata hiyo shule imetajwa hapa, ninaikumbuka. Tulienda kwa shule, tukaenda kwa mandaraza, tukaenda kwa mikutano ya hadharani, tukakutana na watu na tukawasikiza. Hata kuna mkutano mmoja tulifanya karibu usiku, sababu tulijaribu kukutana na kila mtu. Kutoka hapo tulikuwa tuende Loliondo, na tukaenda pale. Ndege ilitua, ilikuwa kama kilomita 100 na pale eviction ilifanyika. Kwa hivyo hatungeweza kufika Loliondo sisi wenyewe. Tulijaribu, lakini tulionyeshwa mipaka ile ilikuwa karibu na hiyo kituo ya DC tuliona, lakini kuna ingine tuliona tukiwa kwa ndege. Hata tuliona ile camp ya wawidanji kutoka kwa ndege. Hatungeweza fika huko. Tulifanya nini? Sababu hatukufika Loliondo. Tulijaribu kukutana na viongozi kutoka Loliondo ambao walikuja hapa Arusha, na tukakutania na wao kwa ofisi ile courtroom yetu ya African Court. Haikukuwa rahisi, na tungetaka kushukuru NGOs wale tulifanya kazi nao, sababu walikuwa wanatuambia mnangojewa hapa, tunajaribu kufika, saa nyingine hatuwezi, mnangojewa hapa, mnangojewa hapa, mnangojewa hapa. Kwa hivyo tulifanya kazi na wao na tulisikizana, tukajaribu vile tulingeweza kusikiza factions zote, kila mtu. Tukasikiza serikali, tukasikiza Ngorongoro Conservation Area, tukasikiza indigenous people, na kutoka hapo tukaenda Msomera. Wakati tulikuwa tunaenda Msomera, hatukunjua tutakuta nini Msomera, sababu Ngorongoro tuliwaambiwa watu wanahamishiwa Msomera. Wakati tulifika Msomera tukakuta changamoto zingine huko chini, lakini pia tukaona bila serikali inajaribu kujitetea na maendeleo. Tukaona mashule, tukasikiza viongozi so vile nilikuwa nataka kusema ni ati tuliitisha serikali, sababu tukiambiwa na watu serikali ilifanya, tukauliza serikali itupatie evidence, ushahidi. Sababu tukienda pahali tunaambiwa hivyo ndio ilifanyika, tukauliza serikali ituletee ushahidi. Wakatuma timu tuletea huko Mbanju. Vile tulikuwa tunaambiwa hii ilifanyika, tukauliza serikali, wakatuma timu ikatuletea. Kazi yetu ni kuangalia hiyo maoni yote tulichukua kutoka kwa serikali, kutoka kwa conservation the national park, kutoka kwenu, na kuangalia tuna analysis, kuchambua, tuchambue, tuangalie pale tunaona ni wazi, tunasema kwa ripoti. Pale atuelewi, tunauliza serikali ifafanue. Hiyo sio kazi rahisi. Leo wacha niwaambie, sababu tumetoka hapo na maoni kama hivi kutoka like this. Kila mtu ametuzungumzia, tumeandika. Kwa hivyo ripoti haiwezi kuwa tayari tu hivi. Lazima tuandike report, na tunawauliza mtupatie nafasi ya kuandika report bila kuacha chochote. Kazi yetu ilikuwa kuwasikiza, na kazi yetu sasa ni kumaliza report. Kwa hivyo tunaandika report. Tukimaliza tutatumia serikali report, tuambie hii ndiyo maoni yetu. Serikali inaweza sema hapana, sisi hatukusema hivi. Tukifika hapo tutajua kama tutarudi tena kwa ground kufafanua, ama report iko wazi ili iende stage ya pili. Na stage ya pili ni serikali ikipatia maoni yao, sisi tutatengeneza report vizuri, alafu ndio report itakuwa tayari. Lakini nataka kusema kitu kingine. Report haiwezi maliza shida. Report haitamaliza shida. Changamoto zile ziko ni za viongozi. Viongozi ndio watakaa chini, wakipata report waende na report kwa mheshimiwa yule mmechagua, mumwambie hii report imesema 1, 2, 3. Muende kwa serikali, mkae chini, mtengeneze kamati ya viongozi. Wakati mkipata report, ikiwa mnasikia kuna pahali haikuingia vile mlikuwa mnataka, ili mtatue shida. Sisi kazi yetu kama kamati ya haki za binadamu na watu ni kusaidia serikali. Hatuwezi fanya kazi ya serikali, lakini tunaweza saidia serikali. Tumesikia kuna uvumi ya media, propaganda. Ukweli haupotei sababu ya uvumi. Kwa hivyo vile ningetaka kusema mambo ine, changamoto ile tulishika kwa kijumla: utumizi wa nguvu, wakati watu walikuwa wahamishwa, ama hiyo utumizi wa nguvu ilikuwa kitu moja. Ukosefu wa kuwasiliana, consultation, ukosefu wa kushauriana, hiyo tulishika. Ngorongoro, kitu ya tatu. Ngorongoro tulikutana na watu ambao walikuwa wanataka kuhama, wakatuambia sisi tunataka kwenda kusomea wenyewe. Ile shida iko, number 1, serikali haitatulipa, ama hatuko na hakika serikali itatulipa bila ililipa watu wale walienda mbele yetu. Lakini hao Ngorongoro wengine walisema wanataka kuhama. Hiyo ni changamoto ingine. Ya tatu tuliona kuna wale wanataka kuhama. Ya nne ni kuna wale hawataki kuhama. Hizo ndizo changamoto tuliona. Sisemi mambo ya report. Hapa ninawaambia sababu kazi yetu, nyinyi ni wananchi. Kazi yetu ni kuwapatia information. Kuwaambia hizo ndizo changamoto ile nne. Naweza sema kwa kijumla tuliona. Kuna wale watu hawataki kuhama. Na sisi tutasema hivi ndio tuliona, tulizungumzia kila mtu. Hii ndio changamoto tuliona. Alafu details. What are the details? Mambo ya kindani ya report. Vile kila mtu alisema ng'ombe ilipatiwa chumvi wakafa, mambo mingi tulipatiwa story zote na tukaandika. Kwa hivyo hiyo ndio itaenda kwa report. Ile kitu ya maana ni amani. Mtafute njia zenu za kuzungumza na serikali wakati mtapata report. Na nimeshataja mko na serikali, mko na watu mnapigia kura, wale wa kisiasa. Hao ndio watu watawaambia vile mtafanya na report. Lakini kazi yetu tumejaribu. Ametangulia mimi alisema tulikuja na hakukuwa anadhithika sana na kazi yetu. Na mimi vile ningetaka kusema kazi hatuwezi mfanya yote. Tulikuja tu siku 5. Tukajaribu vile tunaweza. Hakuna kitu mpya tulisikia. Nimesikia kesi zingine ni za zamani sana. Sisi kazi yetu ni kusikiza hizo story na kujaribu serikali kutatua shida ya watu wake. Lakini jukumu ya kutatua ni ya serikali na wananchi. Nitamalizia hapo na niseme asanteni sana kwa kuja, na kama ninawasalimia mambo ya kimila tulijitokezea, ndio tukaja tukawasikiza. Mambo ya kimila sio shida, changamoto tu sio Tanzania peke yake. Nchi zingine pia ziko na changamoto zao. Nyinyi mnasema mnafukuza sababu ya wanyama wa pori, kuna wale wanafukuza sababu ya madini. Kuna wale wanafukuzwa sababu ya madams zinajengwa. Kuna wale wanafukuzwa kwa hii na hile. Kwa hivyo kazi yetu ni kuangalia kesi. Kila kesi tunaiangalia. Tunaangalia vile nchi inatatua hizo changamoto zake na kupatia serikali mawaidha yetu ili tupate suluhisho ya shida zetu zote. Kwa hivyo asanteni sana, na ninawahakikishia sisi tutajaribu tuwezavyo kutengeneza ripoti yetu bila kufunika chochote. Lakini ripoti tutarudisha back kwa serikali, ndio itafanya implementation. Serikali ndio itafanya utekelezaji. Asanteni sana.
So you introduce yourself, name the organization, and then you ask the question. Anybody else from the NGO? So I think I'll give 2 rounds, and please, when you're given the floor, be very, very brief.
Thank you so much. I'm called Bella, and I'm from Rwanda, Kigali. I work in an NGO called Women Organization for Promoting Unity, and I also work with indigenous people, but in Rwanda they are called Abatwa or Twa people, and our indigenous community also face all the problems that Maasai people are facing, like being evicted from their land and also not having anything in compensation, or maybe also the small portion of those people who got a reimbursement was not very effective. For example, since I work on women, I'll briefly talk about what women and girls are facing. I mean, girls and children are facing. Some few people who have got where to settle, they don't have all the basic needs like water or land to cultivate or anything, so they're facing an extreme poverty. So what I wanted to say is that we also need commissioners to take note about this, that also in Rwanda, our indigenous community are being shutted down, and they also need their land so that they can see how to survive, since they are living with extreme poverty and they don't have any way of survival. Thank you.
Good evening, comrades. I'm Christine Kandia. I'm from Kenya. I'm from Indorois community. I'm happy that today we are putting a face of a struggle, and even our community struggle has become an inspiration to people of Korongoro of Tanzania. I really understand about what it means being evicted from ancestral land. We suffered the same blow as you, our brothers, our mothers, our sisters who are here today. And I had to come here because I heard about our case. I heard about the people who are able to hold our hands, that is MRG, who are able to hold our hands up to African Commission. And today we are at African Commission. We are in Tanzania. You are facing a very serious issue, human rights issue, just like ours. But the thing remains is that we have to remind the Commission that you did the best to our community. We brought our cries to you. But when you don't put a very tough implementation guidelines, it will remain as it is in papers. So maintain the struggle, maintain the spirit. We will be a generation that will have their stories in our books. Thank you so much.
May I ask a question which will go to the panelists and specifically to the commissioner? Maybe we have a ruling which was issued on 22nd of August, which states the operation of government notice number 604, which established the defunct Pololet Game Reserve, which is now which the order said the operation of that GN has to stay pending the determination of the main suit to be filed by the applicants. Now, despite that order, the operations are still going on in that area. People are being harassed, people are being arrested, their livestock are being illegally seized. So what is the implication of that in respect of rule of law, and what will the Commission help in making sure that rule of law is upheld? Because if there is no if there is nowhere people to get hope, like the court, which is a place where people can run to expect to get right, why else? Because so my question is, what is the role, or what can the Commission do to make sure that the court orders, which is the place where people can seek right, can be protected?
Thank you so much. So I think that question will go to the Commissioner. I can see Odera and there was one, and that man. Those are the only ones that will take questions right now. Then from the community, I have been given at least 3 names so that I do not get to pick all hands. And these people have traveled more than 1,000 kilometers to come here. Is it? And this is Frank Kubwera from Bunda, Mwarabu from Somera, and Lucy from Malinyi. So those 3, please prepare. Wale watatu Frank Bwera, Mwarabu kutoka Msomera na Lucy kutoka Malinyi, jitayarisheni na maswali ama maoni yenu. Tafadhali dakika moja kila mmoja ili turudi kwenye wazungumzaji tumalize kikao hiki.
Asante. Mimi nitamuuliza swali Commissioner. Ameongea kwamba wanaandaa ripoti na yawezekana ripoti ikachukua mwaka na zaidi. Sasa je, haki za binadamu zinazoendelea kukiukwa, watu wanaendelea kuumia, nazo zitasubiri taarifa? Mimi ningependa nimuombe kama kweli Commissioner wako serious, wafanye mkutano wa dharura na serikali ya Tanzania kabla hawajaondoka kwenye hii ardhi ya Arusha. Hiyo itatupa imani kwamba kweli wako kwa ajili ya kutetea haki za binadamu. Haki za binadamu ni kitu ambacho hakiwezi kusubiri. Mfano, mtu anabakwa hapo nje. Je, tutasubiri tuandike ripoti alafu tupeleke ili ndio asaidike, au tufanye dharura, kwa sababu swala la uvunjifu wa haki za binadamu ni swala la dharura? Bahati nzuri Commissioner wa masuala ya indigenous ni mama. Mama, unajisikiaje kama wanawake wenzako ambao wamekosa huduma ya afya ya uzazi? Unajisikiaje Commissioner kama watoto wadogo ambao wanazaliwa watakosa chanjo kwa sababu tu huduma hizo hazipo? Utajisikiaje? Hili nalo lisubiri ripoti? Nadhani mama, na bahati nzuri rais wa nchi hii ni mama mwenzako, na kwenye tume ya haki za binadamu wako wa mama zaidi ya 3. Mnaonaje kwa dharura kabla ya tarehe 10 mtakapomaliza hapa tarehe 9, ombeni appointment, special appointment kwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, muelezeni kuliko kusubiri hii ripoti. Sana
mimi nauliza swali kwa Commissioner kwamba mlipokuja Tanzania mwezi wa pili, matarajio ya jamii popote mnapofika ni kwamba mtaitendea haki, lakini mlipokuja mlipokutana na CSOs mliwapa dakika haizidi 30, mlikuja kwa kuchelewa kupitia mfumo ya serikali. Je, hiyo ndio utaratibu wa commission? Lakini ya pili, wafanyakazi hamwezi kwenda kufanya mission ya utafiti mkiwa na watumishi huru. Afisa mwandamizi mtafiti wa kwenu ni Mtanzania, na wakati mtu pekee tunayemlalamikia ni serikali ya Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Sasa ni wakati gani mtajua huyu mtu yuko neutral kwa commission ama anatumika kupeleka maandiko yenu kwa mfumo wa serikali? Natoa mifano mingine. Mlipokuwa na Inokanoka, watu wanaolalamika ni wananchi wa Ngorongoro, lakini Inokanoka unahoji watu wako mbele ya DC ambaye ndiye anatumika kuumiza watu, mnawahoji watu mbele ya maafisa wa polisi. Huo ndio utaratibu wa commission. Tulidhani kwamba commission ingekuwa na mfumo wa kuchukua maoni ya watu wanaoumizwa katika mazingira huru. Hamuoni kwamba mnahatarisha maisha ya watu kwa kuhoji katika mazingira kama hayo? Mlipoenda Msomera, mliwahoji watu vile vile mbele ya RC, alikuwa mkoa kipindi hicho. Tena mbele ya hakuna mtu aliweza kuongea mbele ya mkoa, ndio mwenyekiti wa kamati ya ulinzi na usalama ya mkoa. Na wakati mnaingia hapa, na atoa kama mfano hai, wakati watu wanasumbuliwa pale, afisa wenu mwandamizi ambaye anahusika na masuala ya utafiti, tunasema haya kwa sababu maisha ya watu wetu yako hatarini. Miongoni mwa watu walioweka kizingiti watu wasiingie humo ndani alikuwepo. Mimi nilikuwepo, nilikuwa na macho yangu, nilikuwa na masikio yangu. Kuna mdada alitaka kwenda kuingilia ile swala, lakini akaenda akasema naye chemba, nikamsikiliza akasema kwa nini hawa Masai wanakuja siku ya leo tu? Nikamudaza, nikashangaa, hiyo ndio kazi ya afisa wa commission? Kwa hiyo ndio kwamba ni kwa mazingira kama hayo mnatuhakikishia kwamba ninyi ni tume huru ya watu na haki za binadamu. Na hayo tunauliza kwa
My name is Frank Kubwera. I'm coming from Mara region in Tanzania, in a district called Bunda. I want the commission to note a case of a place called Nyatwari. Nyatwari is among the places which the government is in the process of evicting people. There it is a settlement of more than 5,000 people with more than 30,000 cattle, sheep, goat and cow. But from 2008, the government is in the process of evicting people there without any government document, without GN, by using forces, propaganda and manipulation. So in Tanzania, the case of evicting people and grabbing people, native people's land, it's not only about Maasai. We hear too much about Maasai because the Maasai people are very united.
Kwa jina naitwa Mwarabu Peneti, natoka kijiji cha Msomera, wilaya Handeni, mkoa wa Tanga. Mimi ni msaliwa kwa huko Tanga, na tangia mwaka juzi ndio tumepata habari ya kwamba kuna mradi. Sisi ndio wale wasaliwa huko, na mradi ametuasiri vibaya sana. Ametuasiri mara nyingi kwa sababu anayeletwa huku ni wa ndugu zetu kabisa, na ni kwamba wakati mradi alipoingia hakuna ripoti aina yoyote alioshirikishwa wananchi kwamba kuna 1, 2, 3, hakuna. Kuanzia viongozi wa vijiji, viongozi wa kata, viongozi wa wilaya. Basi walipofanywa hivyo, ikawa wewe kama ile eneo yako umekaa inajengwa nyumba, mashamba kinajengwa manyumba, alafu kinagawia hawa watu wanaeletwa. Tukawa watu wamenyamaza. Tuliponyamaza tukashindwa hata namna ya kulalamika. Watu wanapojaribu kukaa na kufikiria kwamba ni nini, tukasingirwa. Tukawa sasa sisi kama watu wa huku, wananchi wa huku, ni kwamba alioumia zaidi ni zizi, kwa sababu tumenyang'anywa ardhi tayari na hatupewi haki wala hutambuliki. Kwa hiyo tunashukuru kwamba shirika la Pingos alituchukua hatua kidogo. Alituita, tukaja bahati nzuri tukakutana na wao makamishina, na wale makamishina walifika kama alipoongea huyu dada makamishina alifika, na tulijaribu kuongea naye. Alikuja kutusaidia hatua kidogo, mpaka serikali alikuja kutuangalia kwa dakika moja, lakini ni kitu cha ajabu. Ila naomba kamishina kama anasimamia haki aongeze, kwa sababu sasa hivi tumeumia zaidi. Yeye alipofika huku ilikuwa tuna afadhali, sasa hivi tumeumia zaidi na zaidi, kwa sababu kuna mambo ya maajabu. Tumenyang'anywa ardhi, wanapewa wenzetu. Je, tukiishi na wenzetu tutakuwa kuna amani? Kwa hiyo naomba kama kuna sehemu inayosimamia haki au kweli, naomba itendeke kwa mara moja, kwa sababu watu wameumia zaidi sana.
Kwa jina naitwa Lucy kutoka Malini. Ombi langu na kero langu ni kuhusu sisi tunanyanyaswa kule Morogoro. Kule Morogoro tunateseka, tunahamishwa wafugaji. Tumefanya kila namna lakini bado hatueleweki. Kiujumla tunateseka. Asante.
Yanda supa pookin. Ashe tenarishata naishooki yiok maikilikuanu maswali. Ore entoki nang'as aikaaji nanu orkishili ole nainisa. Nang'as aikilikuan ena kitengo naji enekamishe ajo kesipa dii eetayaki oltung'ani. Amu ore yiok kitii ena wilaya e Korongoro nashote Loliondo nikitejo apa meetai esipata oltung'ani. Nikijo meeta entoki naitasheki. Ametoorutuo yiok ekinkilikuan esipata oltung'ani ajo etooruoki yiok haki pookin akeyie naji enaata oltung'ani. Metooruoki yiok enkulukuani mekure kiata. Etooruoki yiok iltung'anak neeri metuata neetai naa esipata oltung'ani. Enyaakaki aoru yiok inkishu endaa nikinosita mekure kiata. Naikilikuan nai ena tomononi ajo eteena ntomonok kulo orki itaituo nkiyioitin neetai esipata oltung'ani. Enyaakaki aaku ore tenakata nkera oonkishu etii enkaji aena netooruoki lasho etumuta olameyu negirai ake aoru yiok impesai. Nang'as aikilikuan ajoki kianyu dii iyie ratiba nai nijoito peesiri nena tokitin pookin naagira aiumia nikigira aye. Nairo entomononi naa entomononi narikito yiok nikijo pee kijoki iyie tenaa ira oltung'ani osuj esipata oltung'ani tabaiki entomononi tiaki ishirita nkulie netuata. Amu etooruoki sana entoki naji enaisho etooruoki esipata enye. Amu etooruoki oltung'ani oonye enkiteng. Ore enkae toki etejo naaji eripoti piiyaya. Kitejo yiok intomonok naing'ua ake ninye olosho lormaasai kiwaita ripotini wueitin pookin neitabaikini. Itu aikata kitum esipata. Nikijo amaa ena nikintoki aya esipa kitum esipata. Ore enkae toki nikintoki aisho entomononi ena naji ene kamisheni kijoki emeeta doi oshi ninye wa Tanzania esipata natumie rais intomonok ormaasai. Matoliki sii yiok isipat. Ore ene musho naitanap tayiolo ajo ore enkaji entomononi ntai taata naarikito. Meeta taata esipata natum amu mikitum uongozi wowote tenkaraki entomononi naiumia yiok naa ninye natara yiok ajo paajoki shomo tanapa tine nimilo te Tanzania etu esaru yiok amu kiata tanakata yiok nkishu natii enkaji naena. Etumutate duo orkuo loonkera etumutate lasho loonkishu. Emuta nkera ontomonok tenkaraki meeta orkuo oishoritai. Naa entomononi narikito enkop nilotu ajo pee kintoki aing'oru eripoti. Meeta enikiya eripoti amu kindipa ataki.
First of all, thank you very much for this very big meeting. Everybody expected to talk because everybody has something to say. Many of these people are victims of what has happened, and unfortunately, we have a very short session, and some of them have even come with documents that they think the commission should look for. So I repeat to say that we need an opportunity, we need an avenue that the people can be heard. This has been a very short avenue, and I think the commission needs more time with the people, and the people have very high expectation with the African Commission, and therefore that I think we need to find a way of having all these things happening to ensure that the people have an opportunity. And of course, we argue our government also to give space for the people to explain their situation, and of course, ensure that there is observance of the rule of law. The lady that came here and failed to speak is not that because she doesn't have anything to say. There are people from Morogoro here, Mabwegere, who are also complaining that even after winning the cases in the Court of Appeal, they are not getting their right. So I think there is a need for ensuring that implementation of the rulings and decisions of the government and the courts that are given, even in Loliondo now, should be respected. And the role of the Commission is also seen as the next avenue that the people think they can get their right. Thank you very much.
First of all, I'd like to give my vote of thanks to all the audience and even to the commissioner. And secondly, I think our mom, the commissioner, you've really had the cry of women. I stand here to represent the entire group of Maasai women. And because you're a mother, I think you will do what a mother can do. Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you very much. For 1 minute. One, the main problem of this country is law and order. We do not have anything known as law and order. Someone here from Malini, from Bunda, all of them, when the government want land, there is no consultation. Go tomorrow. And I think, Madam Commissioner, one of the things I think it is important for all of us, including you and us, to be looking into, we need to address this issue that the government can just come at will and dispose people as if they are no one. That's the most serious problem we are having. I said conservation is broken, but it's not only. Law and order is missing in this country. And if we cannot address this, we'll be crying every single day. Every single day. But I can repeat, because going to the themes of the topic, the conservation that we are having, I think we all have a moral obligation to bring it into its final demise. We do not want the conservation that kills people. We do not want this model at all. We do not want a conservation that serves people. We do not want conservations that is externally driven. It has nothing at all to do with animal welfare. I was listening to last year, US was trying to block importation of the trophy huntings, and our director of wildlife, who is a main guardian of the wildlife, was so screaming, saying this is going to affect the rural community living with the animals because we always hunt to help them. Then they attack the Maasai, saying we protect the wildlife. So in the name of protecting wildlife, you kill the rural community, then you kill the animals, saying you are literally to help the people. A lot of lies, never backed by science, but it works because we do not have rule of law. The last one, and particularly things to the Maasai community. One of the other problems we're having, I think this not have anything to do with the commissioner, is the constitution. A person, the president in this country, has power to kill everyone in this room, and no court can say, but why? So it's displacing everyone because they know no court can say this is not right, and our constitution says no court has power to question any crimes of the president. And I think we as a community, we have a moral obligation to also participate. Don't sit at your home and say it does not concern me. It concerns you more than anyone. Thank you very much. And maybe I can explain. Karedo, ore ntoki tohono naare nakop na ntoki naji utawala sheria. Meri oltung'ani osuje ntoki naji kinde baba. Kedumunye ake oltung'ani nidumu nees entoki nayieu meyiolo ajo meeta enikune. Na tatizo kubwa nikiata. Kiata tatizo ya uhifadhi ni kweli, nemeyiok ake amesipa. Etii oltung'ani ng'ua Nyatole tene Temara. Etii oltung'ani ng'ua Malinyi tene. Etii Altoipayian ng'ua Msomera. Ore Msomera keramanaki ake torkekun obo. Etolimu nayi ele kawi. Amu meya serkali ardhi tenkomono. Keponu ake neji embung'u taisere ashu doldolo yiok. Ore ina nemesawa. Najoki ntae irmaasai. Entokitin na kamishna netii naayiok pookin, najoki ntae irmaasai. Ore tatizo nkae sapuk naa enkatiba nikiata. Sasa idipuo atuja ajo miusu yiok nemuti ntae. Sasa kajokito ntae enyito sii ntae entejo kiyieu enkatiba sidai naret iloshon pookin nemetii oltung'ani inyali. Nemetii oltung'ani oinyalisho eyiolo ajo meeta enitaase. Akiyieu enkatiba naa kila oltung'ani oas kosa neya enkaji. Mee yiok ake nemeyie. Olo likae einyali hoja enake edea naa Enkai. Lazima peekitum enkatiba naitodolu ajo metii oltung'ani le Enkai. Neeku nena kira najoito.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Samuel, 1 minute, closing remarks.
All I can say is that there is hope. There is hope for justice, for every wrong that has been occasioned by the dispossession of your ancestral land, and the fact that you have been evicted and abandoned to lavish in destitute and poverty. There is hope, and I can ensure you that justice will come. It will take a long while, but you will receive justice. Justice came for the Endovoice, and justice came for the Ogiek. Justice will come to the Maasai. I call on you to remain resilient and united in this struggle to regain your land. One day, you have justice. Thank you very much.
Now I'll speak in English, because these are very specific questions. I want to start with the fear that because the commission was in the presence of the DC and we were carried in the local vehicles, we could not do justice to the job. When you go for a fact-finding mission or any research, speaking, having a spokesperson is a very tiny bit of fact-finding. A lot of fact-finding and the results that you end up with are informed by observations. You observe people. You can look at people and know these people have eaten or not. You don't need to be told by people, oh, we have not eaten. You can look at the mood of people that you are working with and be able to assess the mood. And you can know when people are lying. You can listen to people telling you things and you know they are giving you planted lies. So I want to say that in this particular mission, we employed a lot of strategies to collect information. We did observation. We used a lot of social media. As we would be driving to one place, we would get information from social media and it will tell us where you are going to is not even where the problem is. Please divert. And we'll tell our colleagues, we tell them, no, we are not going here, we are going here. And they would say, but this is not what you said. We were getting information every time, what is happening. When we were given information that we felt it landed us in the wrong place, we asked, and what about this community? Then you'll be told, no, this community is not this one. Information from social media is so much. You have more than you need to be able to pick up the message. Samples, we had demonstrations. In one community, they came with salt and water and said, we want to demonstrate this to you. You can't refuse in front of the government. And this is another way of collecting information. So what I want, there are contradictions. People say this, then this say this, and then you are left to assess. And I think that is our work, to be able to determine from all this, where is the weight of this discussion. So in terms of the fact that we were carried in government vehicles and we were in the presence of the DC, does not distort our value judgment as a commission. The issue of the gate, somebody sent me a text message. Oh, we have a problem. I would like to share with you the process that African Union, not just the commission, African Union meetings, when they are hosted by a member state, we signed something we call host agreement. In the host agreement, we agree this is what the national government will do, this is what the AU will do, and this is what guides us. So normally, if when I got the message, I quickly send it to the protocol of AU to send to the protocol of the government, because that's how we work. I cannot start going to the gate, no commissioner, no, this is not how it goes. You follow the rules that are laid down. We have 55 member states. Imagine if we go fighting at gates, everywhere we go, we will not have a union. So let us agree that there are things of procedure that the member states is supposed to follow and to assist. And that's why you are here eventually. It takes time, sometimes, because traditionally, and I've been hosting meetings myself, even in the United Nations, there were times we could enter United Nations very easily. We could even enter with a baby. Now things have changed because of terrorism. Institutions, this is a conference center. They have got rules about terrorism, how they vet people. It takes time. So I want to tell you it's not discrimination. It is the way things are done. If I came wearing Maasai dress and I was stopped, I would now be a sample. You are a sample. These are the things we are saying. So we can say, when we talk to government, we can say, well, we heard that there were cases, isolated cases, that happened not to everybody. So this is something that we need to agree and understand. I think the first question that was asked was to do with contempt of court. And I think, as at when we did that mission, if we picked anything to do with contempt of court, it will be in our report. But now we cannot come collecting information when the report is being written. So I want you to understand that we had a mission and we spent time to collect information. So we shall give a report of what we saw during the time we were here. We can now not start adding things onto the report. But you know, you have civil society here. You are free to continue collecting this information, but I can assure you that you don't need 10 examples to be able to identify a case. So it can be a case of contempt of court, can be cited in our report. And you don't need 10. One is enough to make the law and justice system here stop for a minute and reflect. So I think in that, I would say that if we picked it in our report, we will reflect it. I've been asked by one of the representatives why we should not go to, that we should see the president. We have a baraza before we leave. Now, this is another matter of contempt of court. If we go to see the president before our report is over, that is not how we do it. We must finish our report. Yes. Once we finished our report, then maybe we send it to the government and we raise questions, and the government responds in a way that we as a commission feel that there is need to see the president. Then at that stage, then maybe that can be a consideration. But right now, we are here in an open session. The report is not out, so we cannot preempt. It's called preempting. We cannot preempt the report. It has not even been discussed internally. And I want, that takes me to answer the other question. How soon are these reports done? A normal report takes the commission about 2 years, because usually the reports are meant to just assess situation of human rights. There are no emergencies. But when you go to a country and you find an emergency, when we came to Tanzania, we were here in February. I want to tell you, we've pushed everybody to compile our report, to be able to reduce the time that this report will take. So this, in fact, will be a record in the books of the Commission, in the way in which we have tried to push this report to be out as fast as possible. So I want to assure you that even I and Commissioner Topsy Sono, we have not been sleeping. We have been asking about Tanzania report every day, and I want to tell you that we are giving it our best. It's a huge report, and we are trying to do our best. I think the last question, which was raised by Mama here facing me nicely, about women in leadership. I'll answer this question from where I've been all my life. Before I became a commissioner for human rights, I was a fighter for women's rights. We have fought for women to be in decision making. Women are in decision making now, but women have found a lot of baggage from men. They have found a lot of baggage which has been left by regimes, and so what they are doing their best. We need women. African Union has been in existence for 60 years. If I want to remind you, we are celebrating 60th anniversary. Only 12 years ago, we had the first female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who inherited a country which had been fighting for like 30 years. The second president was Joyce Banda, who inherited a country also which had its own issues. She was only there for 2 years, but she left a good leadership record. Madam Samia, Mama Samia, Her Excellency, is our third president. So we are saying you can even count the number of women who have been in this position. Men have been there for 50 years. All the work that they are finding and a lot of issues that they have to solve have been there. I don't want to accuse men leaders, but I want to tell my lady, I don't know where she is. We have just arrived in State House. We have just arrived in State House. We need more time to be able to undo some of the injustices that are there for the whole nation, not just for women, because that she's a leader of both men and women. But she carries with her the qualities that women carry to office. So I want to speak for her and say that when it comes to certain decisions, she will use the woman's lens. Women in office also have got advisors. And many times when you are head of state, and I'm talking this because I've been in the African Union for 20 years, heads of states do not just decide or say. They are told. Even here you can see, Francis is writing for me what to say. So sometimes when you are before the camera, what your advisor writes you can say, but when you have a time to reflect on something, then you can add your views. I want to tell you that sometimes it's not just, when you are on the podium, you are not just saying what you think. You also ask, you are given, this is what happened here, this you cannot say this, you can say this. So there is also that happening in the background. So let's agree that, like Mr. Ndesi has just said, that resilience is a very important thing in any struggle. If this is a struggle, we need to be resilient. We need to be very optimistic. And I want to tell you that we are doing our best as a commission to make sure your case is well understood and that you receive the kind of support and empathy from your government that it deserves. I thank you very much. I think that I'll stop there because I think there's a translator to say what I've said. Thank you.
Asante, Madam Commissioner.
I think the general consensus is we need to find a conservation model that reflects the African society. A conservation model that is founded on respect of human rights, a conservation model that is founded on free, prior, informed consent, a conservation model that takes into consideration the indigenous knowledge, the traditional knowledge that indigenous communities have when it comes to conservation and the role that indigenous communities play in conserving the environment. A conservation model that respects the indigenous people's right to self-determination, a model that reflects the indigenous people's right to property and to determine how they will dispense of their property. So through this all, as MRG, as Amnesty, as Human Rights Watch, and as partners that have come together,
to be able to organize this side event. Our call for our fellow CSOs and NGOs is injustice for one is injustice for all. Let us come together to be able to advocate, continue advocating for the rights of these indigenous people, not only in Tanzania, but around the world. We've heard from our colleagues in Kenya, we've heard from our colleagues in Rwanda. Honorable Litha, you have a people who believe and trust in the Commission, and that I'm sure we can continue to count on the Commission advocating for the rights of the people within the continent. So I would like to say thank you very much for your time, thank you very much for your patience, and thank you very much for your honest deliberation and being able to candidly bring to light the issues that have been affecting the Maasai people. And as organizations that have come together to be able to organize this side event, our commitment to you is that we will continue advocating for your rights, is that we will continue speaking up for you when you do not have a voice, and that we will continue working together to ensure that we get to a model that respects human rights of indigenous people. Thank you very much.